I've been tasked to talk about the AI race. So we're going to have to run, right? Quick. So basically the idea here is to tell you about where basically Europe and France stand with respect to what is done in the US and in China. And the reason why I'm here is because I've spent half my life in university, half my life in startups and large groups. And the last time I spent was 3 years in China. So I have a weird experience, and I think this is why they thought I could talk about this thing. At the present time, I'm working with Hub FranceIA, which is an association, not for profit, where we basically help companies to get on board AI. And I will probably end this conversation today by a few of the problems that we have with this. Yes. So the agenda is simple. I'm going to talk about why do we have an AI race, what are the plans for AI in China and the US, and then in France and Europe, and then some remarks as a conclusion where we'll talk about what I call the France handicap. And in English, handicap means basically you need one more leg. And I think this is what the status of France is today. The AI race basically come as the fact that we are at the present time in the third wave of digitization. As you will see, I use slides that I borrow from diverse people, and I usually put a link so that you can have a link to these people. So AI did not come just out of nowhere. It's basically something which has been following up to the first stage, which was basically access to data. The web basically changed completely the picture by bringing a lot of the data to the table. Then we had what was called big data. This was the second wave. And now we are in the third wave where AI is just building up on this thing. So the AI race comes from that phenomenon, basically. It also comes from the fact that AI potentially can impact all the sectors. So we can see that many applications can be developed. Of course, we saw the marketing kind of application, but we have many, many more applications like this in every possible sectors. The strange thing is that the perception of this is very different depending on the country. For example, French typically think that only 50% of the economy is going to be touched by AI, whereas China thinks that basically 76% think that AI is going to change. It's going to be a game changer. In the US, 58%. So you see that basically the French people here, and in some respect also Germany, which is very often more or less like us, have the impression that, okay, AI is going to change, but not completely change. Whereas other countries have a very different perspective. Now, as a consequence of that, there have been AI plans launched everywhere in the world, right? So every single country since 2016, 2017 has started launching plans, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the plan in the US, in China, in Europe, and in France. So, but you see that it's a global race, basically. Everybody is in it. So if you look at the investment, the level of its investment in AI, we basically can see three blocks, right? One block is, of course, the US, the incumbent, we would say, right, in this kind of technology. Then we have a block in Europe, which is much smaller, indeed. And then the block in Asia is mostly dominated by China, but Japan is also very active, or Korea are active in this area. So you see that the level of investment are not exactly the same. This is 2016, which means a long time ago for AI, right? Two years in AI means things have changed. So all these things have changed a lot, and probably Asia today, in particular with investment by China, has increased a lot. So if we look at the US, you might remember that Obama started with that. He has actually used machine learning for the elections, using legal data at the time. And right after that, he launched the Artificial Intelligence Research and Development Strategic Plan just before the elections. So Obama was very aware of the fact that machine learning, big data, all these things were absolutely critical for the US. But then a little problem happened. There was elections, and Trump probably used something a little bit funny with Cambridge Analytica, machine learning, Facebook data which were stolen or not stolen, not clear yet. But the clear thing is that some way machine learning had a hand, and probably a very heavy hand, in the results of his elections. Anyway, Trump did not recognize this fact very obvious, and he had a meeting in May this year at the White House where he decided on AI to do basically nothing, right? He decided that there would be a committee on AI, but did not decide of any financing, and decided that the governments would focus on removing regulatory barriers to innovation, period. Okay, fine. So basically, the status at the present time of investment or AI plan in the US is that there is no general AI plan. The investment is mostly in the hand of the big GAFA, as usual, and also in the hand of Pentagon and DARPA. So, as usual, DARPA has a very important role in technology, developing technology, and in particular, their investment seems to be around $11 billion, right? So it's a lot of money. Some of it is in the next few years, some of it is in 3 years, but there is a heavy investment which is planned by them. The DARPA initiative is particularly interesting, I think, because of this idea which is shown here. The idea they have is that for them, AI should be seen as a tool which is going to be complementing people, not replacing people. This is a big fear everywhere. But for them, AI can bring a way to help people or help workers do their job. So they see some sort of, they call it symbiosis between human and AI. So it means that you and I, we are going to have to talk with Alexa or Siri or all these things, right, more and more. And for them, they have identified a few of the topics which are listed here. One of them is the automation. You will agree with that, right? The second one is reliability. A lot of the fears that people have about AI is that it's sometimes not perceived as robust, not reliable enough. How do you ensure that it's going to be working systematically, repeatedly okay? The next one is the problem of what is called the corrupted data. The big problem we have with AI and data is that we train on the data we have. The data is wrong, too bad. Your system is going to be completely crap. Now, the worst thing even is that if I want, as a bad guy, I want to kill you, I'm just going to put a little something in your data. Too bad, right? So there is a big issue here on the work on corrupted data and how can you protect machine learning algorithms against this kind of corruption of the data. And this is called adversarial AI with very interesting new algorithms in this area. Then there is, of course, big machine. Okay, fine, good. And then the next topic is what is called explainability. We have this problem that in some sectors, like finance, for example, in marketing, no, but in finance, banking, insurance, or health, when the AI algorithm takes a decision, you need to be able to audit this decision. You need to be able to explain why it was taken. I refuse to give you this credit. Why? You have to explain that. So today, a lot of the algorithms like deep learning are supposed to do everything, make coffee for you and stuff, but you cannot explain the way they take their decision. And this is a big issue in some sectors where explainability is absolutely critical. So DARPA very clearly identified this topic. And what I like in this plan is that they have chosen, they don't say, we want to solve everything in AI. They have chosen the topics which they think are very critical. And I think we need to choose and we need to decide what is most important. So 11 billion on these little topics, right? Explainability is going to be a tough ball, right? Very hard. Now, if I talk about China, China, as you probably know, has a very strong digital economy. So I've mapped basically GAFA. You all know Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, eBay, Twitter, etc. In China, you have the equivalent of that, which is called BAT-X. So BAT is for Baidu, which is basically Google. Alibaba is the equivalent of Amazon. Tencent, WeChat is the equivalent of Facebook. Twitter and Xiaomi is the equivalent of Apple. You probably don't know many of these guys. There are many more guys that are even bigger, like, for example, JD.com or Mobike or Didi. I was using Didi and JD.com every day when I was in China. So you have lots of very big companies. And actually, if you look at the biggest internet companies in the world, so this is a Wikipedia page, you'll see that the 10 or 15 first, of course, you have Amazon and Alphabet, in terms of revenue, which are among first. But right after that, you have JD.com. JD.com, no one probably in this room has heard about that, right? JD.com is, everybody knows Alibaba, right? JD.com is a little bit like Alibaba, except that Alibaba is more B2B and JD.com more B2C. You can buy everything you wish. In China, I would, go to the Chinese webpage and order my crème de cassis for my Kia, right? In French. And the Chinese search engine has indexed these pages in French, obviously, and I would get delivered my crème de cassis the day after, right? So JD.com is a very strong platform for retail, which has a logistic which is absolutely incredible. In the university where I was working, in a little town called Tianjin, 15 million inhabitants, there was in the university, on the campus, there was a room which was maybe 10 times that room, where every day JD.com would deliver 10, 15 times per day, loads and loads and loads and loads of things to students, 30,000 students, right? So JD.com is a big company. And all this company that you have here, not many of them you know, but they are extremely strong and extremely powerful. In 2017, the Chinese government launched the Next Generation AI Development Plan. This was July. And this came after the fact that somebody made a Go player defeated, right? And Go happens to be the game in China. So if you beat the champion of Go, Chinese, all of them were looking at that and couldn't believe it and could not accept it. So story is that Xi Jinping, the head of the Communist Party in China, when he saw that, saw AI. If AI can beat a Go player, then you have to be good at AI. But, high-level politics. But this is how it started. You have this quote by Kai-Fu Lee, so the chairman and CEO of Innovation Ventures, who worked in everything, Google, Microsoft, everything in the West. He's from Taiwan originally, who says basically two things are important in what he says. Number one, identifies very clearly that the power of China is data. If you think about France, we have 60 million inhabitants, where you do your data with 60 million points, so to speak, okay. They do the same thing with 1,300,000,000. That's a lot easier, right? So the enormous amount of data that Chinese people have is a very strong point for them. It makes their life a lot easier, if, of course, you can collect, clean, etc., right? So the power of data is clearly one of the assets that the Chinese people have. And for them, they identify AI as the most favorable opportunity for China to lead the world. So this is the goal of this plan. With this plan in 2017, the goal was economic growth. China has been growing very fast with a certain business model. Now the business model is changing, so they have to adapt to that and become the world leader. After that, they have a few action plans. So one has been launched in December. But what is interesting is, of course, the level of investment, right, between 23 and 51 billion until 2020. So the level of investment is enormous. The thing which is important also is that they have chosen their topics. The way DARPA did, they have chosen topics where basically they want to provide economic growth, but also service to the society, like fighting pollution, bringing better health, this kind of thing. So it's really a multi-line, so to speak. So these are a few topics, all right, that I was trying to list. This one is about the fact that if you have lots of data and very large investment, then success is extremely fast. So these are examples of companies, SenseTime and McVie and Yi2 are companies in face recognition, in speech, which went extremely fast from nothing to, billion-dollar company. So these are the licorns of China. So they achieve this result mostly with money and data, and they have very good people there. Now, China, as I said, offers services in many, many different ways. For example, this little robot here can deliver your food for you at home. You order on your phone from the local supermarket, it will deliver the food to you. There is also things with security, which I will not discuss here, but security also is a very important topic for China. Now, if we look at Europe and France, so I have to go fast, we had exactly the same picture that we had with Obama and Trump. We had first a report under the government of Hollande, and then right after that, this was forgotten, and we started again a new report, and we got a new report, so we lost basically 1 year from nothing, right? And in March 2018, we got a report where President Macron basically announced a 1.5 billion investment. Remember, I was talking about 13 billion before. We're talking about 1.5 here, right? The plan in France in about 6 months or 7 months now has achieved already a few actions. You might have heard about the Free AI Institutes, okay? They have been pre-selected. There is a goal to train students. There is AI for money for startup. Okay, things are starting. To me, they're starting too late and too slow, right? If now we look at Europe, so I'm part of the AI, what it's called, high-level expert group, which basically is supposed to be writing for the Commission their plan for investment and plan for ethics. So I've taken these slides from the Commission. Basically, what you see here is what are the objectives of Europe. First, they want to maximize the benefit from AI, that is to say the economic impact, by being very careful about the societal challenges. So healthcare is one topic, energy efficiency, road safety, cybersecurity, all of these are issues that the Commission is targeting. The word which I think is important here is what they call AI for good and for all. China has also this kind of motto. They want AI for people, for good. But the topic of ethics is very important. So you don't see that in the Chinese plan, of course. You don't see that in the American plan. But for Europe, ethical framework is very important. So one of the deliverables that this expert group is writing is about ethics. So we make a lot of input on this. The typical level of investment is, at the present time, 1.5 billion until 2020. But the work we're doing now is to prepare the next one, and the next one is going to be about, 20 billion per year. 20 billion per year starts to be kind of interesting, right? But be careful. In here, you have the funding by the Commission, and you have also the funding by the companies, because projects are also always funded by both, right? So 20 billion a year starts to become something, right? So I've put here some of the things that French people do. The one interesting thing is the AI on demand platform, which is a global platform at the level of Europe. And there is one project which is called AI for EU, which is headed by Thales with 90 partners or something like that, which is going to have a lot of initiatives, conferences, everything to basically build a general platform for AI at the level of Europe. So very important, very big, important, I don't know, but very big, that's for sure, right? 10 or 20 million euro investment. What they call the Digital Innovation Hub is something that TerraLab from the Institut Mines-Telecom is an example of. This is a platform where companies, startups, universities, labs, whoever, can find the technical means to run their experimentation. It's an experimentation platform plus help, plus technical assistance, where you can basically start playing with this experimentation, not for production. After this is done, then you move to production. So it would be, for example, for a startup, a way to start using AI. So this has been done for a few years by TerraLab, and at the Hub FranceIA, we are launching something with our members to work with this. I'm going to skip this one. So the trouble in this one is that all of this at the level of Europe is good and fine, except it will come maybe in 2019. The first investment are going to come maybe in 2020, not fast enough. Big enough? Yeah. Fast enough? No, by no way. Right? So this is a problem we have in France and Europe. We are not fast enough, where China has been extremely fast and efficient. I would like to end as making some remarks about the status we have in France, and I'm going to be a little bit mean here. Who profits most from AI? You can see on this slide, which comes from a BCG, I think, study, where basically who is going to profit most is North America, of course, but China. That is to say, China is going to profit 26% of its GDP from AI, whereas Europe, maybe 10%. So we are going to profit, but not so much. So an interesting question is, why? How can we improve that? So the benefits from AI are not going to be equally distributed all over the world at all. So what are our handicaps? Where is the leg which is not working for us? The first thing is that in France, people mostly believe that things will stay the same. If you look at that, for example, the first one, when you ask them, your job will no longer exist, 53 people out of 100 in China say, no, my job is going to disappear. But in France, only 27 think that. People think that, things are like this and they're going to be like that forever. I've done that all my life like this. What would it change? It will, unfortunately. The second one is, if you look at the enthusiasm for AI, you can, if you're not enthusiastic, I think you cannot do anything. You cannot adopt AI. You cannot deploy. You cannot do all these things which are absolutely necessary if we want to profit from it. Look at this and see how pessimistic French are. We know that. They have concern. They are not curious. They don't have optimism. They don't have confidence. They're anxious. They reject it. And look at what the US, Canada, China are doing. We have a little problem here. The next one is people don't even use AI. They are very anxious, but they don't know. They have never done it, right? Basically, in France, 16 people say they've used it, where in China, 31 people have used it. So we're always in very pessimistic, very, on est tous des râleurs, c'est comme ça qu'on dit en français. Okay, but yeah, in other countries it's not like that, right? Unfortunately, the competition is going to be global, too bad for us. And of course, they're fearing for their jobs. Well, they're right to be fearing for their job. With this kind of behavior and beliefs, they should be very afraid. So my take on this is that we have a big problem in France, many problems, but one of them is that we are not open to innovation. We fear innovation, and AI is one of those. We fear for everything. We are not curious. We don't want to start new things. And I don't know how this can be changed, but this has to be changed. And one way is to train, to educate. If you look at people who are 23, 24, 25, they're very different. So my hope is that all people will die quick, right? And that we can train and hire new people who I think will be more open to this new technique. Thank you.
Yes, I think, Nicolas, we have a question over there. It's very interesting. I'm going to ask, can you describe the worst scenario that it will be possible, because it was quite pessimistic?
No, not pessimistic. Oh, no, very realistic. Sorry,
okay, sorry.
No. Oh, no.
Realistic?
Realistic.
Can you, I mean, if you imagine France, if we don't move on in the right way, how can be the country in 10 or 20 years if we don't take advantage of this AI opportunity?
Well, a lot of the people today say that we are a digital colony to the US, right? In 10 years, we're going to be a digital colony to China. And I think we've become a digital colony to the US for many reasons. One of them is that our culture could associate very easily with the American culture, because Americans are Europeans at the beginning, right? If you want to be a digital colonized people by Chinese culture, it's going to be different. We have a Chinese person here, he will probably agree with me that the Chinese culture is very different from the Western culture. So when we will have products, we will come to us, I think it's going to be very disruptive for our lifestyle, for the way we enjoy life, for the way we work, and it's going to be very, very hard. In 10 years' time, some people say in 5 years' time, the world leader in AI is going to be China, not the US. So we have to be accepting the idea that in 5 years' time, the product we will buy are going to come from JD.com. If it's crème de cassis, I'm fine. But some other things might not be so easy. So the worst case scenario would be in Europe and in France, we work a lot, for example, in ethics. Work, and we have very beautiful ideas about ethics, but we don't have products. Too bad. Because products are going to come without probably the ethics in them, but we won't have anything to compete with. So we have to be very careful about keeping all our values, our cultural values, which we think are very important, and be able to transform ourselves into producing products which can go to market and fight with this enormous investment that we see everywhere. Yeah.
Good evening. You've quoted this Chinese guy,
Kai-Fu Lee, yeah?
Yeah, Kai-Fu Lee, who said that the one with AI will lead the world.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one who said that was Putin, and I'm surprised you don't have any data on Russia, so
this
what can
was,
you share?
Yeah. Well, Russia No, I don't have any data of Russia, and this was not what I was, expected to talk about. I don't think Russia has a very powerful AI plan, public. So it's not so easy. I'm not sure if they are very powerful. Obviously, they have very good cybersecurity kind of people, but they don't talk too much about that, right?
We had to move on your presentation, but there was a really interesting slide about the training and how we can educate and this new generation of people. Can you share with us a couple words about that?
Training is a big issue, right? Obviously, if we are going to, so this slide comes from a study by BCG, right? If we're going to develop AI everywhere, and this is why I say we have to kill all the old guys, right? Because if you go to companies, it's very hard to bring new ideas in, to bring innovation in. If you go to Japan, for example, everybody is excited about new things. Everybody wants new things. In China, it's the same. But in France and in Europe, more generally, I think new things, they don't like it. But my hope, maybe I'm wrong, but my hope is that young people are going to have a different mentality. They are more open to new ideas. They are more open. Now they're creating startups. They're taking risk where, my own generation would not take risk ever. You would be a public civil servant for your entire life. So if we are going to need people, and these people, if they're trained in these techniques, but with an open mind, with innovative ideas, innovative spirit, so to speak, I think this is going to be change the picture. The problem is it's going to take years, 5 years, maybe 10 years. And at the present time, tomorrow I'm in a roundtable on these issues. The problem is that the training system in France doesn't have enough money for doing this thing. A university friend, for example, told me I wanted to double the size of my promotion of students, and the president said no. President of the university said, no, I don't have the money to do this. So we have a problem. We need the young people because of their spirit, and they're going to learn all these tricks and all these techniques. But the problem is that our academic system for training is not strong enough. And if you continue paying, I was in a roundtable yesterday with the head of CNRS, right? And he was saying, when I offer 3,000 euros brut per month to a scientist in AI, what do you think Facebook is offering him? 8,000? 10,000? So you don't pay the people at university, that you don't have enough money for training people, we are in trouble.
Go ahead.
So I may just share a comment by a Japanese guy about the fact that at that time, Japanese society were losing their edge on technology, and basically the comment was survival is not the only option.
No.
But I wish it's not the case. But more seriously, my question is about your perception on this area. There's some part of AI that are going to be commercially available to everyone, just as a service by the big guys, the GAFA, BATX, or whoever. But there's also part of AI that is probably not going to be commercially available. And so I'm curious to know what's your perception about that, and if there's some areas of AI where you think that there's some very strategic things happening and we won't have access to that in the future.
Well, this is one of the topics that the European Commission is discussing at the present time. And some of the topics, like, for example, health, a lot, I was mentioning very briefly, it went quick on one of the slides, but China is investing a lot in products on health. Like, if you have a big country, and we seem to be starting to see things like that. If you could have a doctor which is sitting here, and his patient is living in my little village in Provence when there is no doctor. And they can talk and they can exchange information and they can have diagnostics. So health, smart health, is really critical. Now in France, in Europe, we have these very strict laws about protection of the data, do not, so all of these things we are listening to on the TV, where we will have how do they call it, a general card for all your patient data are going to be in one spot. It all comes back to the same issue, data. How can you make sure that, even though, GAFA and Batex, the thing is that they're living in an ocean of data. They profit from that. And as long as we cannot fight them on this, we're in trouble. So I'm for the idea of forbidding Google to use my data. I've been living in China for 3 years. I didn't use Google. Survived. So we have to be aware that all these big companies have solutions which are commercially available, but they use or steal the way you want it. They steal because they don't pay their income tax. They use our data. Now, other solutions are going to be available if we can isolate some topics where we are ready to, put a circle around it. Maybe a circle around these health data, which are all in a system which is well, contained, so to speak, and solutions are going to be available for all of us. Who's going to develop that? Startups. We've seen one. There are many startups now in AI. It could be the government too. The smart government, the e-gov as they call it, is something which we should develop. And there's a division in the French government called DISINT, DISINT, c'est ça? Which is developing things like that.
One last question, and we are running behind the time. Go ahead.
So my question is, will GDPR slow down AI growth?
Who is speaking? I didn't see. Oh, you. Okay, will democracy slow down our growth? In China, you have a model where there is no democracy. It's a different system. And for Chinese people, their system is absolutely the best. For us, we think that democracy is the best system, right? So we have these strange values that we know are hurting us. So democracy is hurting us because it's much better to say, no democracy, you do this, and everybody does it. Use all the data, no protection. It's much more efficient. But we have our values. So the question is, I'm tying my hand, right, with GDPR, with democracy, with all these things, because I think this is crucial to what I am. This is me. So we know it's a handicap. We know it's going to be something we have to fight for. My belief is that today it's a handicap, but tomorrow a lot of the people in the world are going to want and require products with ethics and GDPR inside. Some countries or some cities or whatever in the US are now requiring this. They don't have to. So today, yes, it's hurting us. But tomorrow, if we can put a label on our product saying GDPR inside, let's be proud of it, right?
Thank you very much.